to Clause 22 in Part 2. And it's interesting, actually, because the title above this particular clause says 2010 election for members of ECAN. And then it says 22, 2010 election for members of ECAN must not be held. There's kind of an unusual juxtaposition there, isn't it? That we have the election, but it must not be held. And it is a remarkable thing, and it cannot be understated, Mr Chair, what is actually being done in the House right now in Part 2 of this bill. And it was in the press this morning, the first words of the press article this morning read, "The government sacking of Environment Canterbury councillors will deny hundreds of thousands of Canterburyans the right to vote for regional representation this year." That, Mr Chair, is what has been done in the House right now, taking away the democratic right of Canterburyans, cancelling an election. Now, we know about countries around the world where elections get cancelled by a central government. There are names for those kinds of countries. Banana republics is one of those names, and that is what the National Party is perpetuating today, with the assistance of the ACT Party in this particular bill. This is a democratic outrage, and we have to ask ourselves, why would the government do this? And I think we found that out this morning in the Timaru Herald. And Dr Smith is quoted in the Timaru Herald as saying, part of the reason he replaced the council with commissioners rather than appointing a commissioner advisor to oversee water management issues, as ECAN had suggested, was that he was wary of the outcome of the October elections. Well, people are wary of the outcome of elections all the time. I was particularly wary of the outcome of the 2008 general election, but nobody cancelled it. Nobody decided it was time to cancel the election because we were wary of the outcome of it. But that is what Dr Nick Smith is doing through this bill today. He is cancelling it. Mr Mallard says we couldn't get the numbers. I don't think we would have even tried, Mr Mallard. This is anti-democratic. This is cancelling an election where the ratepayers of the Canterbury region would expect to have representation. Their rates aren't being cancelled. That's not a proposal on the table, is it, Mr Hyde, to cancel the rates for people in the Canterbury region? No, they'll still be paying the rates, but no representation for those people. No representation because this government has decided to cancel an election. This is an outrage, and Clause 22 of this bill actually does this in the baldest possible terms without any real justification coming forward from this government at this time. This is the first time in New Zealand local government that a council has actually been sacked like this without their interest, without their involvement, without actually coming forward. The Rodney example, which has been raised numerous times in this House by the government side, is completely different, and they asked for the review, and the process of having the next election was put in place as quickly as possible. There is no guarantee in Part 2, Mr Chair, that the 2013 election will actually take place. And I, in fact, challenge the Minister or members opposite to stand up and tell us that there will be a 2013 election for the Canterbury Regional Council. No one's done it so far, and I challenge the Minister in the chair to stand up and tell us he can guarantee that the people of the Canterbury region will actually have the opportunity to elect their regional councillors in 2013. Because when we look down at Clause 23, there's nothing here that guarantees that. There's nothing here, and we know that people all around New Zealand should be very, very concerned about what's coming next. In fact, Alec Neil, a former member of this House from the National Party side, said in the press this morning, this is a big call because there's always a political downside. To that end, a message has been sent to other regional councils. That's Alec Neil, a former National MP, the chair of the Regional Council. That's him saying this government is sending a message to councils right around the country. There is no guarantee that regional councils will continue under this government. That's the message. Well, I know here in Wellington that the performance of the Wellington Regional Council comes under scrutiny from time to time, but people are happy with it. People vote in those elections and they work with that regional council because, as Brendan Burns has said, those regional councillors actually play an important role in the environmental health of the region. MPs are able to work with regional councillors closely, as a lot of us do, to make sure that there are good outcomes. That is at risk from Clauses 22 and Clauses 23 of this bill, Mr Chair.
Jackie Dean.